Within the vast and intricate world of Bungu stray dogs, one of the most layered and complicated characters is Dazai Osamu. His relationships, whether with allies or subordinates, are influenced by his own struggles with meaning and purpose. Today, we're going to dive deep into his relationships with Akutagawa, Chuya, Mori, and Atsushi, as well as explore how Dazai's personal fear of attachment shapes these interactions. Dazai was just 17 during the Dark Era, still grappling with the traumas of his past and the existential weight of finding meaning in life. Even though his involvement with the Port Mafia started at age 14, Mori, the leader of the Port Mafia, knew exactly what he was doing when he took Dazai under his wing. In many ways, Mori was a puppeteer, recognizing Dazai's vulnerability and the deep hunger within him to find his place in the world. Mori, as manipulative as he is strategic, rescued Dazai not just physically, but mentally. From the void Dazai was drifting through, he offered him structure, power, and perhaps most importantly, a purpose. But Mori's offer came at a cost. He trained Dazai in the ways of control, teaching him to keep people at arm's length, never getting too close, because attachment could lead to betrayal. This lesson would follow Dazai throughout his life, influencing his every relationship. Now, let's look at Akutagawa. Dazai invited Akutagawa into the Port Mafia when Akutagawa was only 14. He told him that he could give him purpose, that he could make Akutagawa's life meaningful. Imagine the weight of that task. To give someone else's life meaning, when you, yourself, are constantly searching for your own. Dazai's treatment of Akutagawa wasn't born from a lack of care, it was from a deep-seated fear. If Akutagawa hated him, if there was resentment, then it wouldn't hurt as much when Dazai eventually left. Or, worse, when Akutagawa was taken from him, either by death or betrayal. Dazai's fear of attachment runs so deep that he creates this vicious cycle of pushing people away before they have the chance to hurt him. It's a form of self-protection, and we see this play out with Akutagawa in every cold, harsh word Dazai directs at him. Now, let's turn to the 15 arc gives us a glimpse into the early days of Dazai's time in the Port Mafia. Chuya was only a few months older than Dazai, and when Dazai was presented with someone his own age, potential friend, he immediately reacted by keeping Chuya at arm's length. At this point in Dazai's life, it's important to remember that he was still a child himself. Only months removed from witnessing Mori kill the previous boss of the Port Mafia, he was scared and alone. Mori was really the only person Dazai could talk to, so when Chuya entered the picture, Dazai wasn't ready to let someone get close. He feared that if he allowed himself to care too much, he'd only end up hurt. But by the time we reach the scene in the arcade, Dazai is already showing signs of attachment. He's jealous of the way Chuya speaks to members of the sheep, his former found family, and he sees that bond as a threat. In Dazai's mind, keeping Chuya distant, even if it meant driving a wedge between him and his past connections, was the only way to ensure he didn't lose him entirely. Dazai's struggle with attachment is a theme that defines his relationships. Whether with Chuya, Akutagawa, or even Oda and Ango, he craves connection. But at the same time, he pushes people away, often resorting to manipulation or cruelty to maintain that emotional distance. In many ways, Dazai's treatment of Akutagawa is rooted in the same fear that defined his relationship with Chuya. He can't let himself get too close to Akutagawa because, deep down, he believes that attachment will only lead to loss and betrayal. If Akutagawa hates him, then it won't hurt as much when they're inevitably separated, whether through Dazai's planned suicide or the harsh realities of their dangerous lives in the Port Mafia. Dazai's ultimate plan, at least initially, wasn't to defect from the Mafia, but to end his life. His detachment from Akutagawa wasn't an act of coldness, it was, in his mind, an act of mercy. If Akutagawa hated him, then Dazai's eventual departure would hurt less. In the end, Dazai's struggle for purpose manifests in the way he interacts with those around him. He's constantly torn between the desire for connection and the fear of being hurt by it. Whether it's Chuya, Akutagawa, or even Oda, Dazai's actions are shaped by the belief that attachment equals pain. He pushes people away to protect himself, even if it means hurting them in the process. And that is the tragedy of Osamu Dazai. In both the manga and the light novels, we see how Dazai's harsh treatment of Akutagawa isn't about cruelty, it's about fear. Dazai fears attachment, and so, just as Mori trained him, he keeps Akutagawa at a distance, pushing him harder than anyone else. In his mind, it's a form of protection. If Akutagawa resents him, it won't hurt as much when they're inevitably separated, whether by death or betrayal. Then we have Atsu. Dazai's mentorship of Atsushi is in many ways a direct contrast to his treatment of Akutagawa. While Akutagawa represents Dazai's mafia past, Atsushi represents something new, a chance for Dazai to guide someone in a way that doesn't rely on the harsh lessons of the underworld. Dazai recognizes something important: Atsushi and Akutagawa are opposites, but they complement each other. While Akutagawa's ruthlessness could be tempered by Atsushi's empathy, Atsushi's uncertainty could be sharpened by Akutagawa's determination. It's through this realization that Dazai begins to see the potential for balance between the two. But, despite this growth, Dazai's core fear of attachment remains. Even as he becomes a mentor to Atsushi, he still keeps people at arm's length. We see this in his interactions with Kunikata, teasing, frustrating, and never letting him get too close. Dazai's half-hearted suicide attempts aren't just for comic relief, they're manifestation of his deep-rooted belief that life is fleeting, and that getting too attached will only lead to pain. One of the most striking examples of Dazai's conflicting emotions comes in his relationship with Ango in the Dark Era. Ango's betrayal wasn't just a tactical blow, it was personal. Ango, Oda, and Dazai had formed a fragile friendship, a bond that, for a brief moment, gave Dazai a sense of connection. Ango's betrayal shattered that, leaving Dazai feeling betrayed, yet unable to completely sever ties. Dazai still holds on to his connection with Ango, even if reluctantly. Why? Because Ango is the last living connection Dazai has to Oda. Oda, the one person who gave Dazai a sense of purpose beyond violence, is gone, and Ango, despite his betrayal, remains as a reminder of that time. Oda's death marked a turning point for Dazai. It was Oda's final wish that Dazai leave the Port Mafia. And it was through Oda's influence that Dazai finally began to seek a life outside of violence. But even after leaving, Dazai continues to struggle with the idea of meaningful connections. His relationships are marked by distance, pushing people away before they can hurt him. As the years pass, Dazai becomes regretful of the way he treated Akutagawa. He pushed him relentlessly, never offering the validation Akutagawa craved. Why? Because in Akutagawa, Dazai saw his own reflection, the anger, the desperation, the need to prove oneself. And this is exactly what made Dazai hold back the recognition Akutagawa so desperately sought. He resented seeing those same traits in Akutagawa, traits he despised in himself. The boy's intensity and rage only served as a painful reminder of the person Dazai used to be. Then we have Atsushi. Dazai's relationship with Atsushi is notably different. Where Akutagawa is a mirror of Dazai's past, Atsushi represents the person Dazai wishes he could be. Atsushi, despite his trauma and pain, channels his experiences into compassion and empathy. He's someone who turns suffering into kindness, a trait Dazai deeply admires, but struggles to embody. Recognizing this, Dazai pushes Atsushi to work with Akutagawa. In doing so, he's not just trying to make them better fighters, he's positioning Atsushi as the person who can offer Akutagawa the kindness and care that Dazai himself cannot. Dazai sees in Atsushi the potential for Akutagawa to heal, and he hopes that Atsushi can do for Akutagawa what Dazai never could. Through Atsushi, Dazai believes Akutagawa can learn to temper his rage and desperation. Where Dazai's mentorship was rooted in harshness and distance, Atsushi's partnership offers a softer approach, one that Dazai knows Akutagawa needs but feels incapable of providing. Dazai's relationship with Akutagawa is perhaps his most tragic attempt at grappling with Oda's expectations. He took Akutagawa in at a young age, seeing in him a mirror of his own despair and rage. But instead of guiding Akutagawa with the compassion Oda had shown him, Dazai repeated the same mistakes Mori had taught him, keeping Akutagawa at a distance, pushing him harder, withholding the validation Akutagawa desperately needed. Dazai wanted to mold Akutagawa into someone strong and capable, yet in doing so, he buried the part of himself that Oda believed could be different. The irony of this relationship is that Dazai wasn't indifferent, he was scared. He saw too much of his younger destructive self in Akutagawa, and every time he looked at the boy, it reminded him of the path he narrowly escaped through Oda's influence. Akutagawa's desperation for approval was a reflection of Dazai's own inner turmoil, a constant reminder of the darkness he had yet to fully shake off. The resentment Dazai harbored wasn't for Akutagawa as a person but for what Akutagawa represented. The embodiment of a past Dazai wanted to forget but couldn't. Chuya and Ango further complicate Dazai's emotional journey. With Chuya, Dazai's distance is born from the same fear of loss, though the intensity of their partnership always threatens to breach the walls Dazai has built around himself. The bond with Chuya is one of the few connections Dazai cannot sever, and it reflects his internal struggle. He cares, but caring hurts. And with Ango, the betrayal during the Dark Era cuts deep because, like Oda, Ango had represented a fragile, hopeful bond. Dazai's reluctance to fully sever ties with Ango shows that, even in his detachment, Dazai clings to these rare connections, however flawed. Ultimately, Oda's death is the turning point, the moment that forced Dazai to confront what he truly wanted from life. Oda's belief in him, and the promise Dazai made to live differently, becomes the guiding force behind every decision Dazai makes after leaving the Port Mafia. But living up to Oda's expectations is not simple. For a man who has spent his life pushing people away, creating meaningful connections, true, honest connections is terrifying. Dazai continues to walk the line between hope and despair. He wants to honor Oda's legacy by guiding Otushi and helping Akutagawa, but his fear of attachment always holds him back. This internal conflict defines Dazai's character. He desires the connection Oda spoke of, the life beyond violence, yet he cannot fully embrace it because he is still haunted by his past, by the belief that attachment only leads to pain. In the end, Dazai's journey is not about becoming the hero Oda envisioned, it's about struggling to live up to Oda's belief in him. It's about balancing the darkness within him with the light he wishes to cultivate in others. Whether through his mentorship of Atsushi, his unresolved feelings toward or his complex ties with Chuja and Ango, Dazai is constantly trying, in his own way, to make Oda's hope for him a reality. But the tragedy of Daiza is that no matter how far he runs from the past, he can never quite escape it, and the shadows of his old life always linger at the edges of his newfound purpose. What do you think? How have Dazai's past experiences shaped his decisions and the way he interacts with others after leaving the Port Mafia? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Dazai is truly on the path Oda envisioned for him? Or will his past always hold him back from fully embracing the life Oda wanted him to live? If you liked my take on Dazai's internal struggle, make sure to hit that like button. And perhaps subscribe to my channel for more in-depth analysis of the characters and story of Bungo Stray Dogs. And don't forget to ring the bell to stay up to date on everything I post. Thanks for watching, and always remember, dare to be unique.